Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Education Forum, a program that is aired weekly on GRTS. Today we will be discussing examination malpractice and how to reduce incidents of examination malpractice. With me here is Mr. Adam Ajimba Job, the Director of Science and Technology at the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. And on my left is Mr. Bokari Seka, that's the Head of Research Unit at the West African Examination Council. Next to him is Mr. Abdurrahman Sise, who is the Head of Security Printing and Development, also at WAEC. And Mr. Pas Samba Balde, that is the Acting Head of Test Development Division at the West Africa Examination Council. Gentlemen, you all welcome to the program. I want to start by asking Mr. Pas Samba Balde, what do we mean by examination malpractice?
Examination malpractice occurs in many forms. However, a broad definition of examination malpractice would be any act that contravenes the regulations of an examination. For every examination, there are regulations. Once somebody commits an act, whether it is a candidate or somebody who is outside, that violates any of the regulations of that examination, it is considered as examination malpractice. Generally, perpetrators engage in examination malpractice to give, to gain an advantage, an unfair advantage for that matter, to be able to pass the examination. But we have also had cases where people engage in it to penalize others. We've had a case where somebody took somebody's answer sheet and tore it. So basically, to be able to encompass all such possible acts, an appropriate definition would be any act that contravenes the regulations of an examination.
Thank you very much, Mr. Balde. Any act that contravenes examination regulations. Mr. Cisse, can you tell us some of the various forms of examination malpractices we encounter in the country?
Yes, as the earlier speaker has just mentioned, any act that would contravene the rules and regulations laid down by the West African Examinations Council for the conduct of its examination is defined as a malpractice. Now, this malpractice, exam malpractice, is rearing its ugly head in this country. Once upon a time, cases at the end of the year, no case of exam malpractice will be reported. But now, incidents of such malpractice is coming up, and we must make a concerted effort to stamp it out, to curb such malpractice in this country. Having said that, in answer to some of the questions, we have several forms of exam malpractice. They come in different shapes and forms. Bringing foreign material into the exam hall is one such example. Irregular activities inside and outside the examination hall is another form of exam malpractice. Leakage is one form. Impersonation is another form of exam malpractice. Mass cheating on a grand scale is also another form. And of course, insult or assault on people who are there to conduct the exam is also another form of malpractice. Now, for each form, sanctions are leveled against it, and I will have cause to come back to these forms of malpractice and elaborate a little bit further on the sanctions leveled against each form of malpractice.
Mr. Job, over to you. They have talked about the definition, examination malpractice as a contravention of examination rule, a set of examination rule, and of course he has also highlighted some of the forms of examination malpractices. Can you tell us what your take is on what they have said?
I mean, examination malpractice is an act that is very, very unfortunate happening or taking place in our school system now. It is foreign. It is something that we were not used to, but it's rather unfortunate that it is happening as we're speaking in our school systems. As they said, it could be in many forms, but what the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education is very much particular about is how do we weed out this uncalled for, unethical behavior of some of our children and teachers in the conduct of exams in this country. As Mr. Sise alluded to, it could be a teamwork, it could be an individual or a group of children supporting one another during the course of the exams. But whatever form it takes, it is unacceptable, it is not called for, and it is something that we should all work together to make sure that we drive it out in our school system. Because from the moral point of view even, it's not acceptable. And as a result, anything that we are able to do as a sector or as a nation to make sure that we stop our children from cheating or involved in examination malpractice will be something that will go a long way in not only saving out our schools, but saving us as a country.
Well, this brings us to a very, very pertinent question, and I want to turn on to Mr. Bakari Seka. Can you tell us the general trends of examination malpractice?
We look at the cases. Now, a case is a single act where examination malpractice has been committed. Now, in a single case, you may have one candidate or more than one candidate. Then we also look at the number that is involved. Now, if we look at the West African Senior School Certificate Examination, which is the WASC, we look at the 3-year trend, that is from 2009 to 2011. You'll see that in 2009, we had 5 cases involving 6 candidates. In 2010, we had 2 cases involving only 2 candidates. But in 2011, that is last year, we had 6 cases involving 56 candidates. Now, if we look at the Gambia Basic Education Certificate Examination, which is the GABECE, now in 2009, we had 2 cases involving 14 candidates. In 2010, we had 4 cases involving 240 candidates. And in 2011, that is just last year, we also had 4 cases involving 184 candidates. So that is the trend.
So meaning it has been on the increase over the years?
Yes, definitely examination malpractice is increasing seriously.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seka. Mr. Sise, we said it is an act that we need to weed out of the system. Can you tell us some of the various sanctions that are levied against candidates who are guilty of examination malpractices?
Each form of malpractice has penalty attached to it, corresponding penalty. In the case of impersonation, that is, somebody disguising to be another person whom he is not, doing an exam for somebody else, an impersonator, where a person impersonates for a candidate, both the impersonator and the person being impersonated, your entire results would be withheld, and in fact you'll be handed over to the police. In the case of insulting or assaulting supervisors, invigilators, and inspectors during the conduct of the exams, such people are doing their work in a lawful manner. And any attack on them, whether verbal or physical, the person would also be handed over to the police for prosecution, because it's criminal to do that. Often candidates would like to hide written notes somewhere in their bags, in their pockets, in their wallets, and bring it into the examination hall. That is, you are bringing in something foreign into the room. If caught and proven, your results would be withheld until the appropriate committee of council meet to decide your fate. Leakage, mass cheating, all these attract penalties. In mass cheating, for example, a school is said to be involved in mass cheating if more than half of the candidates are involved in collusion or other form of exam malpractice. That's mass cheating. And what it implies is that the school authority is not capable of managing its school. That's what it suggests. In that case, the school will be derecognized. And derecognition in this case means the school would not present candidates on its own in the normal way. The school's physical facilities would be used by council or by the candidates, and the authority of the school would be responsible for the payment of the conduct of the exams. Council would not pay for those candidates, the invigilators, supervisors, and inspectors who would be conducting the exams in the school. Having said that, often candidates would also like to steal or to substitute scripts, even during the exam hall. For example, I suspect that Mr. Adama Jimba Job is a better student than myself, and I don't want him to pass and see myself failing. Maybe in some way I can get his question, not his question, his answer script, and destroy it. Never mind I fail, but he has no mark. He has also failed anyway, so I have got my wish. In such a case, your scripts would not be marked. You will not do any of council's examinations for a certain period of time. And fortunate if you are not handed over to the police. May I hurriedly come back to the question of mass cheating? The school that is involved in mass cheating would also be required to write a report to the ministry and explain itself before sanctions, further sanctions are leveled against the school.
Examination malpractice undermines the whole education sector to the extent that it is prevalent. If it is widely prevalent, it would completely nullify all the efforts that went into training the candidates, before preparing the candidates before the examination. Let me explain. First, the role of an examination. The role of the examination is to determine the extent to which the educational objectives have been achieved by the candidates. Now, if at the end of the year, having prepared those candidates, you cannot determine those who have achieved the educational objectives that were set because of examination malpractice, then it means, it is all the efforts that went into preparing those candidates that have gone up in smoke. Let's remember that the examination comes at the end of the year. And before the examination, all the stakeholders would have done their bit, would have put in effort to see that the educational objectives are achieved. So the parents would have paid fare for their children to go to school, which is expensive, as we all know.